Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inflectra's test automation series called UI Automation 101, where we will be exploring how to best automate interactions with basic UI features. You're joining us for our first webinar in the series, and today's topic is working with navigation and menus. Today's webinar will be presented by Alexey Grinevich, a senior software developer at Inflectra. He holds a doctorate in applied mathematics and has been working in the IT industry for the past 20 years. For the last 10 years, his major interests have been automated testing, legacy APIs, and desktop system testing. My name is Teresa, and I'll be your moderator today. Before I turn it over to Alexey, let's cover a few housekeeping issues. First, today's webinar will last for about an hour and will consist of both a theoretical and practical part and end with a QA session. We ask that you save your questions until that time and use the built-in questions tab to send the questions. These will then be read out and answered. Second, today's webinar will be recorded. In a couple of days, we'll make the webinar recording available on Inflectra's YouTube channel under the playlist called UI Automation 101. Links to each webinar recording will be emailed to you a few days after the live webinar, or you can subscribe to Inflectra's YouTube channel to get notified when new recordings become available. Just to give you a little bit more information about this webinar series as a whole, UI Automation 101 is a 5-part series focusing on different aspects of UI design. A key component to successful test automation is understanding and aligning the UI interaction points and capabilities with the test automation tool's strengths. During this 5-part series, we will focus on specific aspects of UI design. This series is running in parallel with our webinar series titled MS Dynamics UI Testing. This UI Automation 101 series is an excellent companion to that series. For those of you not familiar with our test automation webinars, we recommend that you check out our 2 previous webinar series, Test Automation Demystified and Planet Test Automation First Steps, both of which are available on our YouTube channel. Last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, each webinar in the series has a practical part. We will demonstrate the key practical test automation concepts using Inflectra's own platform, Rapise. If you haven't downloaded the tool yet, please visit www.inflectra.com/Rapise and feel free to use Inflectra's 30-day free trial. So with those items out of the way, I'll turn it over to our presenter, Alexey.
Thank you, Teresa. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, hi everyone. And let's go to our webinar, start from the plan. We will mostly be talking about menus and what is replacing menus these days. So things around application menus. And we will shortly go into the history, and then we will have larger part, and we'll have real life examples. And finally, we will try to summarize to why you actually need this information. After I will show you what I plan, I hope it will be more clear and more helpful for you. Okay, so start from the history. I was just curious myself to find out when the first menu has shown up. And it looks like the first menu appeared in the very first system with actual graphical interactive user interface. So it contained a mouse, it contained graphical display, and it was a Xerox Alto, and it appeared in 1973. And up to that point, it was not really clear what pointing device to use in addition to keyboard. And there were 3 alternative choices, 3 prototypes. One was mouse, or what we call mouse, and somehow it was called mouse from the very beginning, and it's mouse. Second was a touch. So it was possible to make touchable screens from the very beginning. And third was lightning pen or something like a stilo, like stylus that we have in some systems. And finally, the decision was made to use a mouse as the most convenient from all the points of view and all the obstacles and limitations that systems of these days has. And what is interesting that this design, actually, if you look at what you see on the screen, it was 1973, and the first real affordable machine using this design was Apple Lisa. It appeared in about 8 years after that, but this design is mostly the same, and you may see the same design. It survived up to today, actually. So today's computers or desktops are really similar to what we see on the screen. And in addition to that, a bit after appearance of this prototype, in the beginning of 80s, the term appeared, the term WIMP, which was a summary explanation of user interfaces that were developed in various places, like in Apple, in Xerox, in all competing companies. And WIMP is abbreviation for Windows, mouse, menus, and pointers. So essential counterpart of the mouse is a pointer, because it's not like a touch device where you don't have pointers. You simply put your finger where you want to point. The mouse is actually situated elsewhere on your desk, and you need to see where it points. So that's why a pointer. And menus is actually a subject of today's webinar. So we will go on to talk about this. So what we may state at this point, that menus appeared probably about the same time when mouse has been introduced. And since then, menus are used everywhere. So it's like an essential part of a graphical user interface, available everywhere. So it was to talk about it a bit. And this is what we're going to do today. The funny fact is that the term WIMP is not really widely used today. So does it mean that something really changed? Actually, the answer is no, because the history is WIMP has been replaced with GUI term. So initially GUI was meaning anything graphical, and WIMP was an implementation of that concept. But since WIMP became an implementation that everyone uses, like in all computing systems, in X Windows and Next, in Next, and so everywhere. So the GUI became a synonym for WIMP, and then it actually was replaced by just UI. And in many cases, when we talk about UI, we actually mean a graphical user interface, and we actually mean a graphical user interface with WIMP. So it's simply a synonym, but no one actually cares about it. So UI is a current naming of the WIMP term. And today is most modern term is UX. And actually, to be frank, I have no idea what UX means. I didn't find any proper explanation. So some people pretend to tell they understand it. That's good, but not everyone. Some people still have to stay that they don't understand UX. So anyway, we assume for us it's a synonym of all about. After appearance of iPhone in 2007 and maybe even more after appearance of iPad and tablets, the touch interface was born again. And the touch interface is something that really changed the concept, and the touch interface is something that may affect the life of WIMP, because touch, in many cases, touch interface doesn't require you to have a pointer. So that's why the whole WIMP concept is not really valid at this point. And also touch interface introduces new ways of interactions like swiping, rotating the device, and sliding. So this is all new. This is a set of all new ways to interact with device. And actually the devices with such touch interface is something new and should be considered. But for today, we mostly talk about business applications. And for business applications, in most cases, the primary device that's used with these applications is still desktop. And desktop usually has some kind of more or less classical user interface, and in most cases we have a menu or some navigation things. So we're going to briefly go about different options for such navigation approaches. So first example is a classic menu that's here since the very beginning, and we are going to look at such a use case. And good example of a classic menu is a notepad. So I'm just launching a notepad. Now, since our demo should be interactive, let me create new test and try to show how do we support menus in Rapise. I'm creating a new test. It's a desktop application, so I'm making desktop test. I'm choosing RVL. Okay, and let's see if we try to do something with this notepad. So I hit record. Choose notepad. So what I can do, I can choose, for example, format word wrap. Okay, so it's not captured. Let's try again. Format word wrap. Okay, so this is how it should work. You see that Rapise recognized my two clicks and all mouse movements as a single action. Select a menu item. So main menu bar item is format, and then item word wrap. So this is a high-level recording that we have in Rapise. So we may say that we have good support for menu, for notepad menu here. So we may actually do any actions just like we do them, and we may expect them to be captured properly. So it's all good. I'm not going to do about box. Let me finish recording. So it's all good when we need to do regular things with menu, like selecting menu item, which is the most common operation. Although in many cases, menus also have richer set of features, and sometimes we need to have deeper support for those. For example, here, the menu item status bar has a toggle sign. So I may disable it or enable it. So my test case my automated test case or test scenario or RPA scenario may require that this status bar is visible for some reason. So it must be visible. It must be, for example, it may have valuable information like we have right now. And when we make screenshots, we may see this additional information, which may be helpful to analyze any issues. So we just should make sure status bar is on before doing any further test scripts. And here is the problem. If we look at the menu here and we look at its methods, we only see do menu. So we may click menu item. There is no built-in action to read the checked state of the menu item. This is because we have a generic menu support, and the things like radio buttons, embedded editors, checkboxes that are built into the menu, they are always custom. So they have always some differences between applications. So they may be supported, and I will show you how. However, it's not built into the Rapise as a generic support for all kind of such situations. So our goal, for example, to ensure the value like set status bar or format word wrap is set before doing any further actions. And to be frank, you will see how it is complicated. And for the status bar, if I had this task where I need to enable status bar, instead of reading this value, what I would do, I would simply check the presence of status bar on the screen. So it's easier to check the target object is here than to check that this value is actually set. But unfortunately for the word wrap, we don't have such option. It's hard to detect by just looking at on the screen. It's hard to quickly understand if word wrap is on and off. And suppose that we need this word wrap, again, to have information properly presented on the screen. So let me show you how to deal in this case. First of all, of course, I may click on the word wrap, and I may record it again, or I may do it manually using do menu, and menu would be format word wrap. I don't want to use help about. Let me play it and make sure it's working properly. So every time it clicks on the and toggles format word wrap. Now I need to somehow figure out how to read this value, and I need to read it directly from the menu. And this is where I need a SPI. I'm starting the SPI in UI automation mode because for desktop applications, UI automation is a primary technology. I'm hitting Control G to start tracking, and I'm trying to see what parts of the applications are actually highlighted and available for UI automation. Let me expand this to see more properties. So I may easily highlight all the menu bar items. Let me hit format and find this word wrap. So what I can see that this word wrap item is actually highlighted. So it's recognized as a solid item. Now I feel I missed the touch device, because with menu the trickiest part is mouse focus. So if I move mouse away, you see, I wanted to show you the property I want to show. So we need to look at this state property. I'm going to put my mouse back. And you see the state property. So this state property has now value 132. In most cases, the state reflects such information as item is selected, and also it reflects information about checked, unchecked, or toggled, untoggled, and so on. So now it has value 132. So it's, let me type it here. One, three, two. Okay, I'm kids spy is still in tracking mode. Let me toggle this. And again, look at this value. So now state property has value 148. So these numbers don't have much sense until we go to the hexadecimal mode. We need to open calculator. And if we look at 132 and switch to, for example, binary display, we see how this value looks. So the bit number 8 is set and bit number 3 is set. Now switch back to decimal and change value to 148. Go to binary, and we see this 3rd bit and this 8 bit still set, but additional bit is here. It's bit number 5. And this bit number 5 actually stands for the number 16. So if I type 16 and switch to binary mode, I see this bit is set. So it's usually in programming, for those who may be aware of that, it's the way how usually flags do work. So if item is checked, the flag is set in the bit number 5 to mark that. So this is actually the value that we need to check. This bit is the one we need to check to make sure the value is currently, the menu item is currently checked. And I'm going to show you how to read this value and how to use it. And moreover, so initially I was going to show it in JavaScript, but finally decided to use RL because it's also possible to do this with RL, and you will see how. Okay, so before we do something, we need to check one more thing. Let us spy again and see how we may reach specific menu item. So we look at the menu bar. I'm selecting the whole menu bar and do stop tracking. I see the menu bar contains a set of child items for each top menu item, and format is one of them. Although there is no nested children inside format. So unfortunately, I cannot just find a child corresponding to word rep. It's not yet here. Now, if I go to here, I see that format pop-up is shown. So I may select the whole format pop-up. It's only, and it contains the menu items that I want. So what I need to do, I need to learn this pop-up, find an item word wrap in it, and read value from it. And I need to, what I need to keep in mind is that this format is, so if I go to its parent, you see no parent. And while I move mouse away, it's gone. So this item is orphaned. So I need to learn it while it is on the screen. This way Rapise will be able to find it, but I should be very careful when learning to catch it properly. So I hit record. Where's my notepad? Here it is. So I'm going to click on format to show pop-up, and come on. I'm pointing to the border, so no item. While I'm pointing to the item gets selected. But when I'm pointing to the border, no item is selected. This is what I want. I hit Control 2. So that is why we have these keyboard shortcuts, because it's impossible to hit this button when you're dealing with things like menus. That's why it's important to know these shortcuts in Rapise. So you see, I learned the whole format sub menu, and this is what I wanted. Okay, this format should now be here, and you see that window title has changed because initially the notepad was empty, and after I typed the values, it got an asterisk because something has modified. And actually what I want to do, I want to make it more universal. I want to add a regular expression. So after that, it would work same way regardless what title is set in the current notepad document. Okay, now my goal is to so I have this format menu and I want to find an item word wrap. I'm going to use low-level API available here. So you may see that it has do select item just to click on item, but it has no like get item checked or something. So, and I'm going to find an item first. Here is useful method for that. Do find by text. Find a child of this UI automation object, the child that contains specific text. So this is what I'm going to use here. Okay, and text is word wrap. Next, after this method succeeded, it won't succeed because what I need to do, I need to first click just on format. Okay, so this will click on the format main menu and show it. This would find the child word wrap. Now I need to read the state property of this child. So the child, after it's found here, it's stored in the internal object last result. So this is the object that I should use. But if I just use last result, I need to type all the other values here because Rapise doesn't know at this point, RWell doesn't know what type this object has and what method does it have. So there is a trick. I use any other UI automation object because they all have the same methods. So I will use this auto-completion, and finally I will change the object. So I'm again using format. I'm using do get widget property. So it would read the property, and property name I need is I forgot, let me check again. The property I need is state property. State property. This one. Okay, so let me try to play it and see what value it returns. Ah, so it returns state, but state of the format. And I'm changing it to last result because I want to get state of this word wrap. And play it again. And you see the state is 16, and this is what we need. The state is not 148, but 16, because currently the menu item is not selected and other flags are not set. Only the flag checked is here. So we don't need to like extract a bit here. We just need to use a value. And just to make sure my assumptions were correct, let me manually uncheck it and play again. And you see the value that's returned is 0. So unchecked 0, checked 16 perfectly. So now I may do what I wanted. So my initial goal was to make sure word wrap is set. So if it is 16, that nothing should be done. If it is 0, then I need to check it. Okay. So state, I read the state property here. So I could one thing. So I could just use it because state is currently also set in the variable last result. So I could just use it here, but there is something I need to do. You may see that menu stays open after I read the value because I click on the format and I need to click on the format again to collapse it, or I need to do something to collapse it. Oops, sorry. And now I'm going to repeat this operation. So I'm going to hit on the format again to close the menu. But this operation will clean the last result. So I need to use a variable. Variable state and assign last result to it. So here I declare a variable and it would get the result from this operation to get widget property. So it would be the state variable will be equal either to 16 or to 0. Now I may write an branch statement. So if variable state equals to number 0, then I simply need to check the word wrap. Otherwise, I don't need to do anything. So I'm doing application, do menu, and menu is format, word wrap. Okay, let's try and see what we have. So it detected that status is 0 and then click on the word wrap. Now let's play again. Now word wrap is checked. So it should detect the word wrap is here and simply collapse menu and don't click on it. So that's it. So you see how tricky is that. So menus are tricky, maybe tricky. And the trickiest part with menus is this nature, it's pop-up nature. So it's only here while mouse is here and any movement leads to menu disappearance. And that's why it's so tricky. But it's still doable, and we may deal with them. So I hope this example will be helpful. At least you saw some useful techniques on how to deal in such situations. Now move on to next. So historically, after the appearance, the major change with menu appears after people realized that having menus and toolbars. So usually we had menus and toolbars. Having too much toolbars take too much space, and we need some other ways to represent those. And since Office 2007, Microsoft introduced a ribbon design, and it was so new, so modern, so that everyone migrated to ribbon. Everyone had ribbon at that place. And also, many people were complaining about ribbon at the same time, because design is so drastically changed. It was hard to find. In many cases, it's so hard to find something because earlier, when we had a menu, you could click somewhere like File, Insert, or File, Select All. Now there is no text representation of many items, so there is only a toolbar icon for like selecting something or inserting something, but there is no like file, edit, insert menu. So there is no text representation of that, and sometimes it's too hard to find something on the screen. Anyway, it was so modern, and many applications, even those that we really much like, had a ribbon. So this is Rapise 5.7, its last version, where we had a ribbon in Rapise. And we had it because Rapise is born in 2007, so we have no option but to use ribbon to look really modern. And now another live example about ribbon. So here is an application using ribbon. Let me create new test. Menu ribbon. If you guys think there are that today's webinar is too low level, because it's really low level, because some people were asking to show more practical examples, and this is what I'm trying to do. But if you think it's too low level, please feel free to share your thoughts. You may put it to the question section or just send us feedback, and that's really important to us to make webinars that are really interesting to you. Anyway, now we look at ribbon, and again, let me try to show what we have here. So basically, usually ribbons are really good targets because there is a set of tabs, and we usually have good support for tabs for different technologies. So we need to simply hit some tab and then hit some button on the tab. And all buttons are clear. You may see that the name property is usually set. This one is name, and so it's set, it's clear and distinguishable. So there is no issues automating that. So this is very good target for automation until we reach some place like this one. You see, there are things like galleries or some complex combo boxes or some complex controls sometimes put on the ribbon. So in Microsoft Office, there is a style selector, and here is also, it's called a style selector for this application. So what's bad with this? I can, my goal is usually to set or get the currently selected value, and both goals are challenging. So setting value is to some extent possible. I may use same find by text, and I can see that names of all items are different. This is caramel, this is, what is it, DevExpress style. So these are names of the styles. This is a blue style. So these are all findable. You see it's highlighted. So there is a red rectangle, so we may click on it. But what happens if the style is not here? This control actually contains much more styles. And if I go here, you see nothing gets highlighted. So the magic stops. And this is where we have a trouble. Also, if I look at this control, I can see there is a list and these items are currently visible, so I may click on them. But where are other items? There is only 8 of them. And if I go to parent, I can find, here is our selector. It's a combo box, and this combo box contains 3 lists. And one of them is visible and others are not. So items is here. So we may still deal with this list, but you see its internal structure is tricky and it would be harder to select an item. It's harder to select an item because this item has no rectangle and I cannot simply do click on it. Luckily, there is like default action properties, so I may select it using other means available in UI automation, but still, the ribbons are okay. If you see application with ribbon, in most cases it's good. You will be easily able to automate it. What you need to worry about is to check if there are controls like that one, and if you need to actually interact with such controls. So when you're analyzing your application before automating it, so this is first thing to check and do like things like I was just doing with SPY, maybe try recording, maybe find a way how to select something, maybe write to our support. But this is a tricky place and this is what you need to worry about. Okay, we talked about ribbon. Next example of navigations is navigation bar. So this is File Explorer. It's more or less standard. We all know it. You see, it always has like last generation of ribbon. And we have a path here. This is a navigation bar. So what we found is that some people are trying to automate it by clicking here. And this is definitely not the way how it's good to deal with such things, because it has clear workaround. You may see the path by clicking in the center of this control, and it becomes a valid path. So easiest way to automate this, not to deal with these buttons and with these individual items, but to click somewhere in the empty space, maybe with offset from the right point, and simply type the path using like send keys or set text. So this is the easiest way to deal with these navigation bars. And such navigation bars are also available in some applications in CRM and ERP applications. So if you see a bar like that, first thing to check is if there such a feature that you click on it and you may type anything. Usually this is why nav bars are used to have exactly that feature, and you need to know about it. Okay, next good example, very good example, is SAP. It has one more feature. It's not a navigation bar. So usually navigation bar assumes there is some structure, but system like SAP has so many screens and so many different dialogues and everything. So even if you have a tree control like here, sometimes finding something is really a challenging task. So they have this wise approach called transaction codes. So there is a known list of IDs that I may type here to get to specific place in the SAP application. I probably need to reconnect to it, so it's a bit looks like disconnected. But the idea is this set of transaction codes is huge. Yeah, it needs to reconnect. So you see, I already tried different transaction codes. There are lots of them. They're all different. Like if I select this one, I'm getting to some airline tickets booking system, or this way I'm going. Oh, I need to close this one. Then I may go to another place. So the idea is these transaction codes are known for all SAP administrators, and it's really useful way to navigate through the application. And what it's good that your application has that, because it simplifies ways to get into some screen. Some applications have similar approach, but implemented in a bit different way. And here I want to show you a good example, Spira team. So we have a search here, and it's normally it's usual text search. But if I search in special format, then if it's IN, 25, then this means I want to find incident number 25. The same way I may find a task, a test case. So if I know its ID and item, I will quickly go to that screen. So this is one of the ways built into this into the Spira. So when you have like new application under test, it's good if you like learn such features first, instead of trying to do automation directly by like finding artifacts, incidents. So you need to deal with this menu, then find specific incidents. So you need to deal with this list. So you have like several interactions to navigate to specific item. So all navigations takes time. It takes your time to record, to make a script. They take also it's always a risk that like something will not work, or like pop-up will be delayed, or server load is high and the delay is too big. So and test may be flaky and so on. So it's much better if there is a direct way to navigate where you need, and if there is some built-in mechanism on getting to specific page. So this was a last example of today, and now the last topic for today's speech is why do you need to know it? So you just need to be aware about different ways of navigation. And before you test application, all you need is your hands, keyboard, and mouse, and you need to try different ways if they are available in the specific application. Also, if you have access to dev team, you may always tell them that it's good to have that feature, because SAP has this feature, because this feature is available in Windows Explorer. So why don't we have this? Because it's users already. There are many users who are already familiar with that, and it would help all of us to reach our goals. And that's I hope this piece of information will at some point be useful for you. Now all I have left is to introduce you the next webinar that will happen in 2 weeks. My colleague Denis Markovtsov will talk about testing Microsoft Dynamics NAV. And it's time for questions, if there are any. Thank you for attention, and I'm listening. Dennis, do we have any questions?
Yep, so far we have one question. It is, does Rapise support testing of the touch interfaces?
Good question, actually. Yeah, I was talking about touch interfaces. So currently, touch interfaces, we may see them in the Windows main screen, in Windows 10, because it should work both in tablet and in desktop mode. And also, touch interfaces are available on the mobile phones. And on mobile phones, they require you swiping and everything else. Rapise has built-in support for mobile devices, and the mobile spy and all mobile support is a bit different from desktop support. And we have the proper support for touch interfaces. We have swipe, we have all the shaking like interactions available, so you may still work with such applications. So the answer is yes.
Okay, thanks for the answer. So we don't have other questions at the moment.
Okay, good.
All right, so thank you so much, Alexey, for today's presentation. We really appreciate it. And to the attendees, if you have some feedback, obviously, as Alexey said, we welcome your feedback now as questions to let us know how the content was for you. We'll send out an email in a couple of days with a link to the recording of the webinar. And as Alexey mentioned, if you're interested in the companion MS Dynamics UA testing series, that starts in 2 weeks on March 4th at 10 a.m. Otherwise, we'll hope that you'll join us for the next webinar in this series, which is titled UI Automation 101, Tables, Grids, and Trees. And that's scheduled for Wednesday, March 18th at 10 a.m. But until then, thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Alexey.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa.
And thanks for watching.